What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. This is Jake here at Nerd Level Rising, and you can see I'm surrounded by, 10 books of one of my favorite series of all time. If not my favorite series of all time, it's certainly up there. When I made my top 10 series of all time video a while back now, this ended up being the number one. And I think on any given day, this falls no further than 3 on my all-time list. It's between this, Malazan Book of the Fallen, and The Wars of Light and Shadow that I'll duke it out constantly. But on any given day, I might say that this is my number one favorite series of all time that I've ever read. And so with the impending release of Book 7, the finale, Shadows Upon Time, here in November, I've been thinking about Sun Eater a lot. And it's been so fun to see so many people getting into the series for the first time and catching up and just figuring out how incredible this is and just having all these conversations with people. It's the best. And I feel like my love of the series it's just never been higher. And so I'm like, I want to put out more Sun Eater content here on the channel as we sort of build up and lead into the release of Book 7. And so this is the first video that I'm doing. And this is me ranking the Sun Eater books. This is a very difficult video for me to make because these are like children, right? I love them all equally, but I'm going to try my best to rank them in the order that I love them the most. We're going to try anyway. And this is going to include not just the main books, the 6 so far, but also the short story collections, also the novellas. So here we go. First on the list, least favorite, quote unquote, which is still really, really great. And this is actually the first Tales of the Sun Eater short story collection. The reason that this is my least favorite is because something has to be, right? Something's got to be down on this list. And I think when I came to that short story collection, I was coming into it as somebody who would quite openly admit that he does not like short stories. And I was only checking them out because I really like these Sun Eater books. And so when I got in there and I read them and I was like, yeah, these are not really my thing, but it's Sun Eater and I love the subject matter, right? I want something with more meat that I can really sink my teeth into and have a good sit with, right? And really get a deep experience out of. And so I didn't have, my favorite reading experience ever with those, but they were still really great, right? So that Tales of the Sun Eater Volume 1, which according to the website, you can read after Howling Dark, although the stories take place sort of all over the timeline. So I don't think it's a big deal really when you read those. But there you go. Right, that's what it says on the website, after Howling Dark. After that is Tales of the Sun Eater Volume 2, right, which is a step up, right? And again, I came to this as somebody who was not really a short story fan, but Volume 1 was cool. Let me do some more because I just like these. I like the world. I like the not even the world, the universe, the galaxy, whatever. And it was a step up. I liked it more. I thought the stories were just better. I thought they were doing more interesting things. I think they were just really, in every way, a step up. It still wasn't my favorite. I still didn't like it as much as the longer works in the series, but it was still really great. And so, and again, these are generally said to be read after Demon in White is sort of the official answer from Christopher on his website. But just like Tales 1, I think you can read them basically whenever you want. It's not really a big deal. Next on the list is The Lesser Devil, and this is the first novella. This takes place after, chronologically, it's a little bit more complicated, I suppose, because a lot of time passes in Empire of Silence. But this is generally recommended to read after Empire of Silence. And this is the first of 3 novellas that Christopher has written. This is, of course, from Crispin's perspective, and so we get more information, more insight into Hadrian's brother, and a little bit more understanding of who Hadrian is because of that, because of how he views his brother. And then now we see a story from the brother's point of view, and we start to learn maybe Hadrian wasn't 100% spot on about everything, right? So that was really cool. I thought there was a lot of really interesting, religious things that happened in that story, The Lesser Devil, some great action, some interesting insights into the progression of humankind as it's gotten to this point, thousands and thousands of years in our future, but certain things are still intact, right? There are certain old traditions that are still at play, that are still there. And we see some of those here, at least being in the backdrop of The Lesser Devil. And so I enjoyed that quite a bit. It was really cool. After that, I would say Tales 3 is probably the next one up. Again, a big step up. I loved, especially the last one, The Daughter of the Sword. I really, really liked that story. And, this is really the collection that made me sit here and be like, man, I think I'm a short story fan now, and now I've actually gone and I've read short stories in other book series, other universes that I really like, and I've really enjoyed them. And I think that this is really where I realized this dude, Christopher Ruocchio, took me, somebody who didn't like short stories, and made me like short stories. And that's really cool. And so there's a special place in my heart for that. And the only reason that this collection is relatively low on the list is just because, man, everything else is just that awesome, right? Everything else, it's not that these are bad, it's just that everything else is just amazing. And so they have to sort of be higher on the list. But man, it's just another instance of Christopher taking some risks and doing some really kind of off the wall things here and there, and some different, structures or ways to tell a story. And he really, I think, in my opinion, knocks it out of the park. It's captivating. And, you can't stop turning the page, especially because they're short stories and you can get there eventually, right? It's not going to take that long. It's not going to take more than an hour usually to get through some of these. And so it's, they're hard to put down in the middle for sure. Next up, another novella. This is actually the second novella in the series. This is The Queen Amid Ashes, and this one is best read after Howling Dark. This one is... This is really the story in the series that made me sit back and go like, oh, this is going to get dark, right? If you have read this novella, you know what I'm talking about. We see some things that hints very strongly at... some things that will be more deeply explored as the books go on in the main novels. And I guess I can say it that way. And it was just so, wow. It really opened my eyes to what certain aspects of this were going to do and where Christopher was going to maybe go with some of these things. And of course he did that and then ramped it up to 11, at that point. But, I loved getting a glimpse into how dark this universe is going to get. And I love just seeing another, something that is referenced in the novel. You don't have to read these novellas to understand what's happening, right? But in the main novels, they're going to talk about some things that happen in this novella. And so reading it, you just have a more firm mental image of those events, right? Which I think is really cool. And you can catch some little Easter eggs that are dropped in the books that you... I don't think would get quite as strong of an appreciation of if you hadn't read particularly Queen Amid Ashes. And so definitely a must read in the series, I think. Although it's not absolutely necessary to understand the story, I think it really adds quite a bit. And so there's that one. After that, I'm going to say Dregs of Mid-Empire, the next novella, the third novella. And this one is traditionally said to be read between Ashes of Man and Disquiet God, so after book 5. Christopher has said this recently, and I gotta say, I agree. I think this is actually best read after Disquiet Gods, because I think there's some things that will pack more of a punch if you read them in that order, right? So, and if you've read the full series, you probably know what I'm talking about. And so that's what I would say, right? I would agree with, I think, Christopher's most recent thoughts on that reading order, but nonetheless... This is the longest novella. I think on ebook it was like 300 something pages long. So it's bordering on novel territory, as Christopher seems to want to do. His books just keep getting longer and longer, especially when you consider that these two are supposed to be one book. But it tells such a great story, and it's got such a different vibe, I think, to a lot of the other parts of the series, but still has a lot of that similar. It's got a different vibe, but a lot of similar vibe at the same time. And we're following a different point of view that, myself, I think a lot of people did, but I certainly did, really, really wanted to get some story from this point of view. It's just such an interesting character. It's just such a, wow, the worldview that this person must have just seemed so interesting to me. And so to get some of that worldview was just awesome, and it didn't disappoint. It had some Cowboy Bebop references, which I loved, and it's the best, right? It's the best. So this is my favorite novella of the series. And I believe Christopher plans to write more in the future, I think. But for now, at least, that's what we got. And so it's great, right? It's great. So this is my favorite of those. After that is the last of the short fiction, because, of course, probably unsurprising to most people, the full novels are my favorites, right, of the series. But the last of the short fiction, Tales of the Sunny Volume 4, is then my next favorite here up in this list. And the reason for that is because I think these are easily his best stories that he's written, his best short stories that he's written. I think that he just really swung for the fences with a couple of these. One of them, the final one in the collection, was one that he has said that he didn't think he would ever write a story like this, a story from this perspective, a story about these things. And I can see why, but man, is it interesting, and man, is it cool. And I'm so glad that he did write it. And, the other stories in this, the Fangs of Wano, the weird, almost alternate history kind of thing, right? This sort of exploring this idea of how events can change in the telling. And it's, wow, I don't know. This collection was just by far the best. This was one of these that I was just like, I was coming into it now as a short story fan, meaning that I now have expectations, and I now have hopes, and I now have things that I'm just really wanting to get out of this reading experience. And I got all of them and more. And I mean, you can't ask for too much more than that, can you? So there's that. And now we transition into the full novels and trying to rank these. Now, disclosure, I have not yet read The Murdered Son, so that's not going to be here in this ranking. Sorry, right? When I do my reread, I plan to read that first and then get into Empire of Silence directly afterwards so I can compare and contrast them. I think that'll be really cool. But now as we go to rank these 6, we have 6 spots left on this list. Where are these going to go? Well, the next one on the list I think is going to be Empire of Silence, which is shocking to nobody, right? Because I think generally speaking, most people would say that this series gets better as it goes. Now, maybe some people say book 2 is their favorite. Some people say book 3, book 4, book 5, book 6, whatever. They might have these in different order, but most of the time, people have Empire of Silence at the bottom. And I think that that's a good thing, because that means Christopher got better as he developed as a writer and as he just learned more about life and his what he wants to say and his voice and his style and his mastery of the craft. Like, all of these things should improve as somebody writes more and more books. And that's exactly what happened, right? So rightfully so, the first book is not as polished as some of these other ones. It's still great, right? That, like, there's nothing, I don't have any big complaints. Some people will say that they have some qualms with the pacing, especially in the middle of the book, right? I didn't have that. I enjoyed the whole thing all the way through. I thought the prose was fantastic. It gripped me literally from word number 1 on the first page. I was like, okay, I'm here for this. I'm hooked. This is my thing now. This is my personality now. And so I fell in love immediately with the style, this melancholy, this melodramatic kind of sad boy, just like, and who starts off on page 1 telling you the ending, quote unquote, which my theory is we don't actually know the ending. He didn't tell us the ending. He told us the last thing that he is going to tell us. We don't know for sure if that's the ending, right? That's my thoughts. Anyway, this is the frame narrative. This is Hadrian Marlowe, older, telling us his story, right? Recounting the events that led him to become what he has become here far in the future. And so now we flash back in time and we see him talking about his younger self. And we see him sort of lamenting how he was in his foolish youth, as so many of us would. And we see, I think through book 1, we see so much about him learning to be honest with himself, learning about his pride and how he needs to set that aside and how he needs to grow up. And we see so much about some setup for the story, right? That, Hadrian is, through his background, he's sort of positioned uniquely to be an asset in this war that's going on between the humans and the Cielsen, the alien race. And, he has these great intentions. And when he is sort of thrust into the real world with an opportunity to act on those intentions, not everything goes according to plan. And so seeing him react to that was great. Seeing him start to build relationships with some people that we'll then see sort of continue throughout the series. I loved that. I loved just the tone and the prose of this, the writing style. I loved everything that Rocchio does with taking some things from Dune, taking like the Scholiast in here, sort of similar to the Mentats, but he's doing something different, right? It's not a copy of the Mentats from Dune. He's making very much making his own thing out of it, right? He's taking the Litany Against Fear from Dune, and he very much makes it his own thing, and he expands upon it, and he grows, right? He's taking things from some of his influences and then doing his own thing with it. He's saying like, hey, I liked this also, but let's do this too with it, right? Let's build, let's pay this forward. Let's expand. And I love that. He does things with Book of the New Sun, right? Hadrian will say things from the Book of the New Sun because he's quoting it as a classic, right? Hadrian has so many things through this story where he will quote philosophers and these ancient stories, things from the earth of old, where he is just in love with that period of time. And so he sort of lumps the Book of the New Sun in there with that, and which is just such a beautiful thing and makes sense for Hadrian's character, but is also just sort of a little nod to Rocchio being such a big Gene Wolfe fan. Like there's just so many cool things that he does with this that's just awesome. And so, I just appreciated that a ton, especially now having read some Book of the New Sun. I'm like, oh, wow, this is so cool, and I get it, right? I get it. So Empire of Silence, there we go. I'll try not to ramble about all of these for that long. Sorry. Next one on the list. This is hard. I think I'm going to say Ashes of Man is the next one on the list. And this is hard because I love Ashes of Man. It did so many great things. So many great things. At this point, we're at book 5 in the series, so much has happened. Time has passed. Stuff's gone down. Hadrian has changed. All of our characters have changed because they've just been through so much. And seeing some quiet moments with these characters now, after so much has happened, it just holds so much weight. It holds so much weight. And we see, some things, some events that happen here that can really only happen because we are now in book 5 and because so much has happened, because there's so much baggage, that they pack such an emotional punch. It's not just a cool thing that happens. It's not just this big action thing or whatever, right? It's not just that. There's so much emotion. It just has so much gravitas to it. And so it's just incredible. It really, really is. The only reason it's below these other 4 is because those other 4 just speak to me a little bit more. That's really it, right? So again, like neither of these, Empire of Silence or Ashes of Man, are bad. It's just that these other 4 are just that much more special to me personally, at least. And so now, at this point, we have Howling Dark, we have Demon in White, we have Kingdoms of Death, we have Disquiet Gods. Any given day, I will rank these in a different order. Any given day, okay? I have attempted to talk about my favorite of those a few different times on the channel, and I think every time I have ranked them slightly differently. And so today, as I sit here and think about this, I think what I'm going to say, next on the list, Empire of Silence and then Ashes of Man, I think I'm going to put Demon in White next, which is maybe, I don't know, right? Demon in White's a lot of people's favorite, and I get it, right? When I read it, I immediately was like, this is my new favorite, Now in hindsight, as I've had time to sit, I think I'll put it slightly below, some of these other ones, but it just did so many amazing things. It opened up the series to this like court intrigue, imperial court, fantasy, political maneuvering. Like it opened that aspect of it, which is just incredible. And Rocchio does it really, really well. It has so much emphasis on research and learning and information and history and like what is knowledge really, right? How do we know what we know? And it opens up other aspects, new dimensions of things that have sort of been mentioned before, but now we're like, okay, now here's this whole can of worms and we're going to open this up. And then the battle scene at the end is just mind-blowing. This is, I tell you what, guys, the movie in my head that I had reading the final battle scene of Demon in White, unbelievable. Unbelievable. And so I love it to death. When I read it, I was like, this is my new favorite of the series. Now I think I'll slightly amend that. And the same thing happened with what the next one is going to be on this list. That's Kingdoms of Death. And this is hard. This is really hard to put Kingdoms of Death here because I love so much, especially the end of Kingdoms, especially the second half of Kingdoms of Death, I would say. The first half, I love it a ton. It's awesome. It's very different, right? We're taking Hadrian once again, and Rocchio has done this, I think, very intentionally. Every book, we do something quite different. There's like a tonal shift, or there is a new aspect of the galaxy that we're going to go explore. And he does that again in book 4, and in a couple ways. If you know, you know. But I loved seeing this different aspect of humanity, seeing this different aspect of what people have become, what people are doing, their motivations, their culture, their history. Awesome stuff. it's slightly less awesome to me than some of the other things that came in some of these other books. That's the only reason that it's now, I suppose, third on the list. But the back half of this, like, guys, okay, it's it's something else, okay? It's something else, and the title and the cover of the book say quite a bit. That's all I will say. Right? It's a pretty good poster for the book and what you're promised. So loved it. When I read it, I was like, this is my new favorite. And then in hindsight, I was like, oh, actually, maybe I still like Demon in White more. And then now in hindsight, even further back, I'm like, oh, actually, I kind of like that more than Demon in White. But I think I'll put something else a little bit higher. I think I'll elevate something else a little bit higher. And that is Howling Dark. Next on the list, Howling Dark. Book 2 in the series. When I read Empire of Silence, I loved it. And I was so excited to get to book 2. When I read book 2, I was like, this is one of my favorite books of all time. This is one of my favorite books I've ever read in my life, period. It was incredible. It blew me away. It was everything I loved about Empire of Silence, ratcheted up a couple more levels, and new things that I loved even more than the stuff I loved about Empire of Silence. Now we have this dark, gothic, cold tone. This is like the most Gene Wolfe book that he has written, right? Christopher has said that. Now that I've read some Gene Wolfe, I totally agree. It has, if you've read Shadow the Torturer, you have seen that really just ice cold gothic tone. That's so strong in here. So strong. It starts off with a bang, and then we have this more methodical, more just, I don't know, you just sit there and experience what's happening, right? In a more slowed down sense where you can really get a lay of the land and really just feel all the stuff. It's so great. And we're seeing, this is our first big step out into new things after book 1, right? Book 1 is, you're so anchored in book 1, right? Because you're sort of in this like, well, this is the start of the story. And then in book 2, we open the doors, right? We open the floodgates. And then we get deeper and deeper. And then the end of this book, there's so much just cool sci-fi stuff, and it's so dark, right? It's so dark, and we get some cool like cosmic horror vibes that start to kind of come in, and there is just this deep feeling of dread that goes through this whole book, and the end is shocking. It literally shocking. I gasped. I put the book aside. I had to do like one of these, right? It's crazy. It's crazy. And it blew my mind. It blew my mind. Howling Dark, and again, every time when I read Demon in White, I was like, I like Demon in White more. When I read Kingdoms of Death, I said, I like that more. Now, though, the longer it sat, the more I'm just like, man, Howling Dark is just really hard to beat. It's really hard to beat. And I think the only reason that I'm going to put Disquiet Gods on top as my favorite book in the series, I think the only reason for that is because Disquiet Gods has taken everything that I love about all 5 of the preceding books and mashed them all together into one. It's taken everything that Hadrian has gone through and the weight that he carries and how much he's changed. We have that now, right? Now we see why even book 1 had such a deep sadness and a deep melancholy to it. We see why it has so much just the feeling and the emotion that Hadrian narrates his story with. We see why, right? We see some of the little foreshadowing things that he'll drop along the way. Because again, this is future Hadrian telling us his story. He'll say something like, such and such happened, if only we had known blank or whatever, right? He'll do some things like that every now and then. Now we see why, right? And that payoff is just so great. And we see the progression of him as a character still, right? He's still changing. He's still making progress. He's still doing new things. And we see a lot of those dark, gothic, horror things that come out in Howling Dark and that come out in Kingdoms of Death. We see those at play very strongly here. Very, very strongly. We see some of this emphasis on knowledge and learning and history that we see in Demon in White, for example, comes back to play in an Empire of Silence. That comes back to play here. We see a lot of just the huge emotional, just gut punches that we see in several of these books is at play here. I've said this publicly on the channel many times. Disquiet Gods is the book that I have cried the hardest at of any entertainment, anything in any medium, any book, any movie, any game, everything. I have never cried this hard. I was ugly sobbing. I can't, I can't handle it. It was crazy. It destroyed me utterly. And I love it for that. And so I think that experience also just really puts the icing on top, where it still is, at least for now, holding up as my favorite book of the series. And from what I hear, some of the early thoughts people are having on Shadows Upon Time, for the couple people who have gotten a chance to read it, maybe that will supplant as my favorite of this series. Who knows? We shall see here in just a couple short months. But there you have it. There is my ultimate Sun Eater ranking, almost ultimate because I haven't read Bird and Sun. But anyway, almost ultimate Sun Eater ranking list. That's what I got. If I make this video again tomorrow, I might rank these differently. And maybe someday we'll have to do another ranking of these. Maybe, here's what I'll do. Maybe I'll read Shadows Upon Time when it comes out, and then give it a little bit of time to sit and marinate, and then maybe we'll do a full reread, and we'll do The Murdered Son, and we'll go through all the novels and novellas and short stories and everything, and we'll let that really sit on the reread and see how it feels, and maybe then we can do another ranking at that point and see how things hold up at that point. That might be fun. But for now, anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you like this, hit that thumbs up button on the video. It does help spread this out a little bit, build up some more hype for Sun Eater as Book 7 approaches. Talk to me in the comments. How would you rank things? Do you agree with my rankings? Do you disagree? Let me know what you think. I would be very interested, in particular, how people are ranking the novels, right? Although, of course, short stories and novellas, I'm definitely interested as well. I think there's mileage varies a bit on those, right? Some people like some more than others and that sort of thing. So let me know how you would rank things, and what do you think of what I have done here today. And if you like the video, you want to see more stuff from the channel, hit that subscribe button. I love seeing everything grow. Head to the video description and you can see the link to the Discord that's free for everybody to join and come hang out with us there. There's a bunch of awesome people in there talking books, talking, I mean, everything at this point, right? It's popping and it's super fun. And if you want even more fun, more exclusive experiences that you can have, not just in the Discord, but with the channel, you can check out the Patreon, where we have opportunities for you guys to get in and be involved with the videos that I make for the channel, propose ideas and really have a lot of input on that front. And I want to make sure that I'm making stuff that you guys are interested in. And you can also join the book club. I'm having an amazing time with that already. To be honest, I didn't expect it to start out as good as it did. I told a couple of people, I was like, hey, I'm really scared nobody's going to join. But that didn't happen, right? And it's just been amazing so far. I'm so excited about it. And, that's off and running. So if you want to get in on the fun, check out the Patreon, see what you think. Feel free to join whatever tier you want to do. And, we can have a great time with all of that. And you get access to some exclusive channels there on the Discord, where we can be talking about the books and talking about other things as well. So check out the description of the video for all that kind of stuff. Other than that, that's all I have. I hope you all enjoy Sun Eater even half as much as I do, because if you do, you are having an absolute blast of a time with this series, and I hope you are very excited for the release of Book 7. I can't wait for the release party. It's just going to be incredible. Thank you for watching. See you next time.